Hello. On this lesson today, we'll be looking at the cubic equations from calculus, whereby the exercise asked us to graph a cubic equation. Actually, to sketch the graph of these two cubic equations. But then now the question is, where do you start? How do you find the x-intercept, which is the first property that you will need of the two equations? So then now we know before you can find the x-intercept, you need to factorize a cubic equation. So then in this case, what do you do when you have to factorize the equation when you're just given this? And sometimes it may not be easy when it comes to the trial and errors. So then now, how do you now deal with that problem? So today, I'm going to explore more on that. We know that generally the equation of a cubic, I can say f of x is equals to ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. So it has exactly 4 parameters. So then now we'll be making use of the calculator. Instead of the trial and error, we're going to use a calculator because that's the tool that we'll have in our examination. So how do you utilize your calculator for that? You first need to understand your calculator will be like this when you on it. So then now what you do is you press mode. Just press mode, you will see EQN, which stands for equation. It differs from the calculator on which number that will be on. So on mine, you can see the EQN, which is the equation, is next to 5. So then now on number 5, I press 5, and then it will take me to types of equation that I find on my calculator that it can factorize. So then now, or you can find the root of. We can see our equation here is cubic on number 4, ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d equals to 0, which is exactly what we know. X-intercept y equals to 0. So the left hand side or the right hand side is 0 when you have that. So then in this case is true, so which means we're looking for the roots of the equation. So we press number 5, which we're interested in our cubic equation. So press 4, and then it will take you to your parameters. My first parameter on number 1h is 1. You press 1, and then you press equals to, and then for b you have -3, press -3, and then you press equals to. Next one is c, which you press 3, again you press equals to after you press your number, and then you have -1, and then you press -1 again, and then equals that. Then when you're done, you just press equals to again. It will give you the first root and the second root and the fourth root. So here actually it's just one root because you'll see at the end of this, but then the only thing you need is the first root. So the first root, or just one root of the equation, so that you can make your factor, and then you can use your skills of factorizing, which is a long division K method inspection, to factorize your cubic. So in this case we have x equals to 1. So x equals to 1 is when the equation equals to 0. So then we know that actually g of 1 will be equals to 0. So therefore, by factor theorem, x minus 1 is a factor of g of x. So if it's a factor, then we can go on and use it. It's a factor of g of x, so which means now g of x will be equals to x minus 1. First factor and second factor will be a parabola or quadratic. So we have ax squared plus bx plus c. So now we have to find the new parameters of the parabola now. So how do we find the first parameter, which is a of the parabola? So we look at the coefficient of the term x squared, which is 1. So therefore a will be equals to that constant, which is 1. And then what about c? b, for now we leave it. See, we look at the constant term of, or the d term of the of the equation, which is -1, and then the last term of the first factor on this is -1. So you say -1 from the cubic equation divided by 1 negative the constant from the last from the first factor, the last term of the first factor, which is -1. So -1 divided by -1 is 1. So c is equals to 1. And then you go on. Now you have to find d. You first say x times bx, okay, and then which will give you bx squared. And then you come again and say the last term of the first factor, you say this times that, give us -ax squared. And then you're gonna sum these two together. You're going to say bx squared minus ax squared equals to the term in the cubic equation that has x equals to x squared, that has x squared. Sorry. So now in this case we have -3 x squared, x squared. So then now we therefore have to solve this. So bx squared, our a is 1, so we just substitute a is 1, they end up with -ax squared, and then we transpose this, plus 3x squared equals to 0, which is the same way that you factorize. And then now these two are like terms, so we have bx squared, which means now this is gonna be minus into that, we end up with plus 2x squared, which equals to 0. And then we take out a common factor, which is x squared, and then we have b plus 2 equals to 0. And then in this case we know that x squared is not equals to 0, and b plus 2 equals to 0. In this case, therefore, our b equals to -2. And then now everything is set. Our g of x is now equals to the first term, first factor, x minus 1, and our a is 1, so we just leave it as x squared. Our b is -2x, and our c is +1. And therefore we go on and factorize the parabola, open up two brackets, and then we have +1 here, when I have -1, -1, and then here you just have x. And then from there we can see that all these factors are the same. We can end up with x minus 1 cubed there, and then you can go on and see that you only have one x intercept. And then now this actually has a purpose. It means this root must have three purposes, three functionalities actually, or purposes, which is the number 1 in this order. Number 1 will be the x-intercept, purpose number 1. Number 2 will be stationary point or turning point. I can say turning point, either first or last, you will see which one it is, but in this case only one turning point. And thirdly, it will be point of inflation. All this will occur at one point. All this will occur at one point. Okay, at x equals to 1. So your graph will actually look something of this kind, depending on, actually you can see there's only one thing, there's only one turning point, one point of inflation, and also one x-intercept. That's how we analyze the equation. And then you'll do the same with the others. It should give you you should use a calculator to find your first your first root of the equation. Use that root to form one factor. Use that one factor to factorize. Either use a long division, or use a K method, or use